Jamie, my man.
Mate, how are you?
Going really well, brother. How are you?
I'm doing really well, doing good. How's your day?
Mate, it's been Thursday's always chaos, man. I love the chaos, but it's just hectic client facing. Normally supposed to finish up about 4:30, but fortunately the 3 p.m.
Yeah.
finito, which is good. So
I work in a school, and it's funny how it's been a transition to not having like 90% of the students on site, 90% aren't on site, but your day can still be made busy by just doing different things. There's just so many things you can do in a school. It's great. I love a busy day. Love a fast day.
how is it? How are you finding like doing a lot of it on like online then?
Well, because I work in the wellbeing, I'm not a teacher.
Yep.
I will still do a lot of phone calls, or
Yep.
what we've been doing this time is we've been getting selected students that might be more higher need of, say, wellbeing support, whether it be a one-on-one chat or group program, whatever it is. We can still get them on site, luckily, because I work in Frankston North,
Yep.
and that's the area that I work as. Majority of the students would be classed at risk.
Yep.
And that classifies them for, to be honest, most of the kids could be at school like during lockdown time because of what they're categorized as, probably because of also the lower socioeconomic area. But yeah, some kids just see this as a holiday as well.
Yeah, mate, I reckon if I was still in school at this time, I would have been absolutely loving it.
Oh, mate, I totally get it. I was a student's I was a teacher's worst nightmare back all the way through school. They were stoked when I left.
It was like the greatest gift ever when you're out of here. They're like, Jamie's done. See ya.
How far did you go?
Now I finished. I don't know how.
School.
Yeah, I finished.
Yeah, okay.
I was only there for sport. Like I loved sport, and I was on a scholarship, so I stuck it out. But yeah, I did what I felt would help me sort of coast through. I did arts, I did drama, I did, maths. Like I did all these things. Like I finished pretty good with an OP though, to be fair, but I was no intention of going to uni. I was just wanting to play footy. Like that was the dream. And so
okay.
Sport was just like catch up with the boys, train,
yeah,
and chase girls. That was the What's it?
Yeah, I was a very different person when I was younger. Very different. Like no drive.
What were you like as a younger bloke?
I was no drive, no self-esteem, particularly no self-worth. And I guess I don't say these things lightly. I really, I didn't have any, I didn't know what the hell I didn't know how to build them. I didn't know what they even could exist in my body. I didn't think very much of myself at all. The funny thing was, like, particularly when I was like up until the age of, say, 16, I was, although probably angry, I was still timid in some ways. And it wasn't until I started doing martial arts when I was 16, and my trainer there, who is still the toughest man I've ever met in my life and probably ever will.
Always scary.
But not physically, like just this, he's a real life version of Terminator, but I don't mean that in a way he just goes around doing stuff, but just like he's just so focused, so switched on, like, like I don't know, they're just the ultimate version of like a tough male, and not just tough physically, like tough emotionally as well. Anyway, I started going to him, or going to the karate there, and it wasn't until I started, but listening to him and really respecting what this guy was telling me, I started to bring more of this confidence out more and more. But up until then, like, I seriously thought up until the age of 16, 17 that I was a wimp.
What was it? What martial art did you do?
I started doing karate.
Yeah.
And then karate transitioned into kickboxing at about the age of 22. And then the age of 24 to 26, I was fighting in the ring. But
was it what was that? Because I did Muay Thai.
I did.
Yeah, I sort of. I find, I think there was a sense of confidence that comes with the fact that you feel like you know how to protect yourself. I know for me,
Yeah.
like I wouldn't say I can fight my way out of a wet paper bag now, but there was something about, being able to know that you can, that first punch. I still remember I got punched by Dane Sky, who was an Australian champion Muay Thai, and when I was sparring with him, and I accidentally like just unloaded one, and he fucking belted me after that. And I just remember like being in the corner, and I like, as much as I was like, "Oh, don't do that again," because it's sparring, and obviously when you're just learning, you don't really know your reach and all. You feel like you bloody
Yeah. Yeah.
baby giraffe trying to walk. And I was like, well, I didn't die. Like, really, I'm still here. So you realize you can sort of take a punch. Obviously, you don't want to take a punch, but then there's this newfound confidence. I remember the training that we're doing, like, you're doing your 8K runs, then you're getting into sparring. We had a little gym, like a Rocky style set up in Highfields here at Spainey's Muay Thai.
Yeah.
And then I just felt more confident because I used to get bullied for being a skinny little dweeb.
Yeah. Okay.
But from the moment that I sort of knew that, I was like, well, come on. Even though I couldn't fight my way out of a wet paper bag, like I said, I just still felt.
You had courage though.
Yeah. So I think, what was it like for you? Like, obviously getting into that sort of place, what lessons did you take?
I think the biggest kind of, how can I explain it? Like, as I was kind of mentioned before, I was previous to joining martial arts, I felt like a real wimp. And I guess to give you a bit of insight into that, due to my home life early on, like during primary school and some of high school as well, it was really hectic due to, a lot of it was really hectic, and a lot of it involved being in a household with domestic violence. And that puts kids on edge, and it's really common for them to wet the bed. And I wet the bed right up until the age of 14.
Yep.
And I just literally don't think a person a boy or girl wets the bed till then, they don't know confidence. It's like, because I was always trying to hide that from people, right? Like up until that age. And I was scared people would find that out. Like, it was obviously nothing I could do. I just grew up in that environment, and there's a high correlation between kids that grow up in that environment and kids that can wet the bed. It's like super common.
Is it just like a correlation from fear, or?
Yeah, because I think the anxiety can do that. Like, you're not really sleeping properly. Probably, maybe that's what it is. It's just, I'd say that's what it is. It's just a physiological thing that happens, boys and girls, and that happened to me for a long time. As I said, up until the age of about 14. And so, like, I'm like, oh, I'm this kid who wets the bed. I'm timid. Like, to be honest, I wasn't really thinking like that. I was just hiding who I was from people, and so I was never really out there overly confident. And then, when I started doing martial arts, I started to, I can take a hit. I'm doing all right. I wasn't like going out there and I was like, oh, I'm this fantastic fighter. And that, to be honest, never happened. But what I did learn how to do was learn how to defend myself, as you said. And where maybe people used to, like, I was never really bullied, but I was let people do things to me, like treat me badly and all that kind of stuff. And what martial arts probably did was gave me the confidence to stand up more for myself. Not even like stand up and actually always do things physically, but I guess sometimes I needed to when I was younger. But it was more about just having that self-confidence. But it was probably my, I don't know, around 18, early 20s before I really started to develop that. But previous to that, I was timid. I thought I was a wimp. And then when I finished kickboxing, like, because I had like 2 years where I was fighting, when I, like, maybe not even when I was finished, smack bang in the middle of my fighting. So I'd had 9 fights.
Wow.
I realized, like, I was tough. I was a tough fighter. I wasn't necessarily the greatest technical fighter, but I was tough. I had a good name of being a tough fighter. Man, I fucking love that so much. Like, so much. Like, and it helped me. It helped me come out a little bit and have a bit of confidence. And like, because there was just things that I pretty much, long story short, in regards to how I let people treat me, I wouldn't let them treat me badly anymore. And it doesn't mean that I was going around doing anything, but it was just, I had the confidence to go, no, that's not happening. I would stand up for myself, by verbally stand up for myself. I stand up for other people as well.
Such a powerful thing, getting that back to be able to stand up for yourself, and I guess even enforce the boundaries, right? Because yeah, often you don't. I know for myself, like I was always so scared of confrontation as well. Like I just didn't want to either cause a fight, because until you take a hit, you feel like you can't take a hit. And then also I just I didn't want to upset anyone for calling them on something, because I was like, well, maybe they don't understand how they're talking to me. But if people don't know, they don't change. And
Yeah.
much like you, like it was being able to enforce boundaries, and it's helped me so much for where I am now. But even sticking up for other people and help show, you know, you and I are very similar with where we really want to help other people be better and learn
Yeah.
how to set their own boundaries, but then also be able to enforce them, which is pretty.
Yeah. And I think, to be honest, there was probably a stage where I could have really started to get in a bit of trouble if I kept going down a certain path.
Yep.
But luckily I kind of reined that in.
How'd you rein it in? Because I didn't rein it in too soon. Like I
Yeah.
went.
What happened was, so when I kickboxing in the ring helped me rein it in, because it was like around my 20th birthday. There was like a year period around then where I started to do some things where I kind of got back at some people that had done me wrong, or had literally done something. Like a guy slept with my girlfriend back in the day, and then I'd warned him about blah, blah, blah. And he just kept doing some things. I'm like, sorry, I gotta defend myself. As in, like, I've got to stand up for myself. This is what a young guy is doing. I wouldn't do this now as who I am as a 37-year-old, but I just did that on like 3 or 4 occasions where I felt I needed to start getting some respect back, and that's what I did. That's the way I did it. And luckily, kickboxing came along at the time, as I was able to put it in another avenue.
Why wouldn't you do it now?
Because I think one of the things that I've developed, whether it's accidentally or deliberately, is this thing called empathy, which I'm sure you've got as well. It's really hard to go out of it and do something to someone when you have this thing called empathy. So I've got a better understanding of people now. And it's like, don't get me wrong, if I had to defend myself, like, you know, my family or myself, oh, no worries at all if I had to defend myself in the right moment. But I wouldn't go out like when I was, say, early 20s, I'd be like, nah, that guy's getting it. That's it. He's not respecting me enough, or he's not respecting you enough, and I'm gonna do it. But it's just I'm just not like that anymore. As I said, I think it's empathy, because especially particularly being, I work in a high school, or even I work with people.
Yep.
Yeah, you have to be good at what we do, especially yourself as well. You have to have empathy. And if you have empathy, I think this is where empathy can be scary for some men, because empathy actually will take your guard down. For you, sorry, mate. For you to have empathy, your guard has got to come down. And I think a lot of men aren't ready for that to happen.
What was it like for you letting your guard down? Especially coming with, like, did you have, like you said, you loved that you had that reputation as the fucking tough fighter. Like,
yeah,
was that hard for you to let it down with that?
I think I had no choice. And the reason I had no choice is because, so when I was 26, so I actually started ring fighting when I was 24, and I finished in June or something like that, 2010. I had my last fight, and the reason why I had my last fight in 2010 is because I developed a vision impairment. So now I've only got 10% vision, and I had to stop fighting. Then life changed completely after that.
10% vision. So, like,
yeah, I lost 90% in about 3 months.
Just from head knocks and stuff, or?
Nah, it actually wasn't from kickboxing. Oh, well, it could have been triggered by a number of things. It could have been from smoking when I was younger. It could have been from kickboxing. It could have been from drug use when I was younger, but there's no concrete kind of thing. It could have been from stress. Could have been anxiety. There's just so many factors that could lead to it, with my condition. But it's what it actually is. It's a hereditary condition that, like, in my bloodline, but nobody else has had it before. So we didn't know it was even a possibility. So, like, I guess for the last 3 or 4 generations, no one's had it, but I've lived a life, I guess, a fun life.
Yeah.
That's brought it out. So, it was a real bit of a shock when I was 26.
How old are you
now? I had to stop fighting.
Are you 38? 38.
What was that, mate?
Are you 38 now?
How am I okay now?
No, so how old are you now? You're
I'm 37.
37. What?
10 years.
Yeah, 10 years you've been with 10% vision.
Yeah, 10% went in. I went down to 10%, so I lost 90%. It was like 2.5 months, nearly 3 months. And what I was originally told by I can't remember the name. It's like a neuro professor guy, a brain professor.
Someone who deals with that stuff all the time.
Yeah. I was told by him, like he had an idea of the condition, but not a concrete idea. He goes, he delivered it to me like this. He goes, "You're losing your vision." And I said, "Okay." I said, like, what's going to happen? He goes, "Well, you'll probably see nothing one." No, he said, probably said, "You're going to see nothing one day." I'm like, "Fucking, how long is this going to take?" He goes, "It could take a month or two." And that is how it was delivered to me. Luckily, within maybe a month and a half, 2 months after that, there was luckily a specialist. There's one or two like specialists in Australia, or at the time anyway, so 10 years ago. One of them was in Melbourne, and I was able to get in to see him. Luckily, I was able to get into him within 2 or 3 weeks. And he said to me, like within like 5 minutes of sitting down, he goes, "Okay, how long you had this condition for? Like how long has it been happening?" And I said, "Oh, it's about 3 months it's been happening now." And he goes, "Okay, what the vision you've got now is pretty much where you're going to stay. What's going to stay with you." And it was about 10% at the time. And like, because I was so like tense and everything, like around the time, because like I lost my business, I couldn't drive anymore, I couldn't fight anymore, and I was just thinking that I was going to see nothing one day. But what my brain does, in sometimes it goes to worst case scenario, and then I get almost okay with worst case scenario, in some ways, like I just, okay, whatever, that's going to happen. I've got to deal with it. But then when he goes, "What you've got now is going to be what you stay with," I'm like, I just relaxed in the chair. And I was like, "Oh, yes." Because it was like, I still got 10%.
Yeah.
So that's how I remember it happening back in the day.
It's a cool perspective shift. Like it's almost like old bud telling you that you're going to lose your sight in 3 months made that 10% news better.
Yeah, like, I think so. Yeah, I think, but I'm also fortunate. I don't know exactly where it comes from. I know it doesn't necessarily come from family. I think it might have come from maybe experiences when I was growing up, or just in my DNA, or a combination of both. But I'm always resilient. I'm always looking for the positive, and I don't go, "Oh, like if something bad happens today, but you've got to be grateful." It's just a natural thing. It's just like, okay, what are we going to do now? What let's move on.
Yeah.
Like, and sometimes maybe I do that too quickly. I don't know, but that's how I handled it.
Very similar with you there. And I always question, like, have I like sat with it enough? Have I processed it? Or am I like, I'm really like cut and move on. Like it's dwelling on this isn't going to allow me to be living the life that I want to live. So let's just learn what I can from it.
Yeah.
Get to sit with it for a day, cool, and let's move forward. But what's it like? Like how would you describe 10% vision? Like I can't even like fathom.
Okay, so the kind of 10% vision I've got, because all vision impairments are different. So some people can have, say, 10% vision, but they could see you on the screen, or they could see your face in person because they've got like this tunnel vision, where I'm the opposite, where I'm like, I only really have decent vision peripherally.
Yep.
So like as I look at the computer screen now on the Zoom, I can only see colors, and I can kind of see a bit of an outline of someone in the middle. I just know where to look. I can't actually see you on the screen.
Mate, you're lucky you can't see my rude mug. I tell you.
Mate, I've seen plenty of photos. You're a good looking man. Take that from a visually impaired man too.
Thanks, bro. I will. I'll take it.
But it is like, my condition is like a million little lights going off where information should be, and there's just like nothing there. So it's not blank. It's just a little bit blurry. It's hard to when I use like a big iPad to do most things, and I can zoom in, or I've got a big mobile phone, I'll zoom in and read things. That's how I do like Instagram, or edit videos, or do my study even, like that's how, or I listen to, so like when I'm studying for an article, studying for a unit in uni, I'm like reading research articles, I can listen to them.
Man, it's pretty fucking inspiring what you do. Like even just so many people have, and obviously everything's relative, but like for me, hearing 10% vision that's 90%'s done, right? It's gone. And you're doing some cool stuff with your podcast, The Mind Tradie. doing a heap of incredible stuff on social media, and then obviously also studying psychology, because similar to me, like you want to help people find their potential to be their ultimate self, right? And
Yeah.
I think like why haven't you allowed all these things that have popped up that could have been the perfect scapegoat to play small in your life? Why haven't you allowed that to happen? Why have you just fucking grit and bear it and just continue to push it?
I think I'm fortunate I'm fortunate in many different ways. For one, is that my eye condition was not a health condition, as in like it wasn't that it wasn't like a muscle disease. It wasn't like something that stopped me from doing a lot of the things I'd like to do. Like I could still exercise, I can still walk, I can still do certain things. So I'm like, I had to quickly find what I could still do and make use of that. And that's kind of what I naturally did. Like I couldn't drive to the gym anymore, so I walked. Or you know what I originally did when my business first started to go? I went to a gym, like a 24-hour gym, one of the first ones in my area, and it was 2 suburbs away. And because wasn't working at the time, because I'd had to give up my business, I would sometimes not be able to sleep. So I'd get up at 4 a.m., ride my bike with this crappy light on it, a visually impaired man riding with 10% vision, riding to the gym. I'm just like, I guess I was good at finding things to still do. And the other thing that I think one of the things I'm extremely fortunate is that I don't have a coping mechanism which tells me to give up. This is something that's like, it's come up quite a lot to me at the moment that I want to learn more about, because I don't have that. So, and what I'm talking about is say men and women, but I guess with focus more on men, and that's probably, I think it's more common for men, is to say they decide to in their life or give up in some way, because there's when things get really, really tough. But that is not a weakness thing. That is not a strength thing that I've got it necessarily. That is not a weakness thing that other people have it. It's just a coping mechanism. And I'm fortunate that I don't have that as a coping mechanism, because you know what? If I did, who knows what could have happened? But I literally don't have thoughts that tell me to give up. I don't, like, it's not in my head to do that.
Do you ever have the thought where it's like you potentially consider it, but then like you override it? Or does it just not even pop into your head at all?
I have certain things which make life difficult, where sometimes I don't believe enough in myself.
Yep.
Or due to my I could go into it quite a lot, but I think you could do a whole episode on this. Due to certain aspects of my upbringing,
yep.
I could tell you reasons why I believe that some people have a fear of rejection. I had, and just starting to get over it now in the last couple of years, or last even 12 months, I had a belief of rejection. I didn't have it necessarily just a fear. I believed people were going to reject me in some way. And that happened in like every facet of life. It was going to happen in my relationship. It was going to happen in my work. It was going to happen when I ventured out in business or podcasts or social media, as in like I wasn't going to be accepted. So that's what holds me back sometimes, but I never have a give up.
Did you find when you obviously even just having that belief around rejection and probably not even fitting in, when you did sort of get some connection or fit in with someone, like you almost clung to it, or
so you mean like, say, relationship wise?
Yeah, relationship wise and stuff.
It was that was the biggest test, probably. And I think I've been with my missus 9 years now. So in the first couple of months of us going out, I started to get really, really anxious and fearful. But what my brain started to do was, because I was getting fearful that she would reject me, or as in, not just, how can I explain it? She would find something in me after a while and then reject me. That's what was like a belief that I had. I was starting to look for reasons for why I should end it beforehand, which is really common.
100%.
Yeah, and so that's what I had started to do, but luckily we worked through it. And I remember I had this argument with her early on, and like, yeah, within the first couple of months, and we really started to like each other, and that's where the fear came in, because the fear came in after I started to really like have strong feelings for my missus, and I knew she did too, and that's where the anxiety got heightened. But luckily, I think after an argument one day, I remember we had this dumb argument, and I just walked off. And then about half an hour after, I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? And I fucking ran back to her house. And it was like, instead of being like a half an hour walk away, it was like I got there in like 10 minutes, and I'm like, I'm sorry. I don't know what I was doing. It was like I had this moment of clarity. And then she had this understanding. And I think it was that understanding after we had this argument. I think that day she might have said, I think you need to chat to someone. Because she could tell, like, I have this, yeah, that had something going on. Like, I had this tendency to just go, oh, righto, fuck off then. But I wouldn't allow myself to get close to people.
Yep.
Like that. And through fear. But yeah, she had this understanding. She showed me this love and understanding. And I think that's kind of what helped me start to get over it. So she's been fantastic like that. No one, I guess, or maybe I've never allowed anyone to do that before. My missus, who I've been married to for, I think, 9 years. 9 years next month. Oh no, this month in September. It was like September 13th. So 9 years.
Unreal. Congrats.
Yeah, thanks.
What do you think it was? Because I know, like, even for myself, I always used to sabotage my relationships through jealousy or all kinds of things. And I found ways to fuck it up. So rather than me having to, because also I was gutless back in the day. Like, I couldn't have the hard conversations that need to be had. So even if I wasn't happy in the relationship, I wouldn't talk about it. I'd just find a way to cause a fight and then flip off the fucking handle and, do whatever, or I'd cheat and then try and turn that back on her. It's your fault. And I did all these dumb things. And I think, looking back at myself, I just was so emotionally immature. And I hadn't allowed myself to be vulnerable, but I don't think I knew how, because it was so new. And I see so many blokes now that are still just like big boys, like the way they interact with women, and sometimes, ghosting and all that sort of stuff. And I'm like, boys, like, you're better than that, and women or men deserve better than that. Like, but I find it interesting. Like, obviously you ran away, but what was there, like, a specific thing where you're like, nah, I need to fucking, or if your missus hadn't received your apology almost with love and understanding, do you feel you would be where you are today? Like,
no, I think I'd be on the same path with women in relationships probably. If she didn't do it, it may not have happened. I'd probably just be in this continuous cycle of getting close. After a couple of months, you start liking someone, and then I may have just continued on that cycle of just finding ways to end it, or doing dumb things like what you were saying and getting it ended on you.
Your missus sounds like an incredible woman.
Yeah,
like, to be able to.
Right. She's really good. And like, her and I were talking about having kids after 3 weeks of going on our first date.
Yep. Do you have kids?
Yeah, I've got a 6-year-old daughter.
Oh, unreal.
What about yourself?
No, not yet. So we get married in when do we get married? In 5 weeks.
Okay.
On Saturday was the first morning I woke up and I was like, holy shit, like the excitement's coming. You know when it's like Christmas is near when you're a kid, and that feeling?
Yeah.
You're like, man, Santa's coming for me. I'm like, all right, 5 weeks, and we've got like a little Wednesday, we're calling it beforehand. So all the bridal parties are coming up earlier, and activities and stuff. So I'm so excited for it now, but I'm also just, it's like that next chapter. I feel like I never thought I'd get married, and I never thought I'd be thinking about kids, but now I feel like I'm in that position where then you're starting to think about that. You're like, wonder what I'd be like raising a little Lockie Junior. Like, it'd be pretty cool.
I reckon you would be a fantastic dad.
Thanks, man.
I reckon I like, literally, this is the first time we've chatted properly, and I just get a good dad vibe from you.
I'll take that. I think I would. I want to be. It's in an area of focus, and I think even for myself, like, one thing I always wanted to have sorted was obviously, there was two things, right? First was financially, I wanted to sort of sort myself out because I struggled a lot with it, with money. And then also secondly was emotionally, like, because I was just so emotionally immature, and it caused so much so many challenges in my life that I didn't want to be I wouldn't have been a good role model. So I wanted to be able to lead myself to then lead, obviously other people, but then be a good role model as a dad. Like that's always been, once I felt comfortable and confident and competent almost in myself with that, then I'm like, yeah, I'm good to go.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's interesting.
Yeah, I think what I've been thinking about that recently has come up quite a bit. I think if men could, no, sorry, both men and women, but particularly men, if they were somehow a little bit more conscious that, particularly in relationships, but all areas of their life, particularly relationships, similar to what you were just talking about with, say, being emotionally immature, or the things we were talking about, could commonly be controlling the way a lot of people are in relationships. Say, when you start having feelings for someone particularly, or you have those fears, whenever fear comes up for some reason, that could actually be your kind of things that you developed as a child, fears that you developed as a child, and you've never really dealt with them, or emotional wounds that you've developed as a child, and you didn't know they were there, so you've never healed them. I think a lot of people don't realize that they exist. And I think if people can start realizing that, like, I'll give you an example. So I started to have a lot more control, a lot more power over my emotions, particularly when it came to my relationship. Sometimes I need to, I had to have like a good picture in my head of what I'm doing. And what I kind of pictured was, when I was getting fearful in the relationship, it was like, and I would almost retreat. I would just go, "I'll stuff you then." Or, they might say it to me, and then I would just shut off and not care. I developed this real good blank, and I didn't really care. And it could happen even with fighting as well. I can kind of just turn off real easily. But what I was actually doing was, I was like just going behind this wall, and it was this boy that had developed this great skill of hiding behind this wall, because that's what he had to do to survive and feel good emotionally. So instead of feeling bad when I was younger, I just switched off. I didn't feel bad anymore. But I kept doing that as a man. And then, so a way that I kind of helped myself with that was that I'm like, I pictured myself, and I wrote it down as well, as in like, I needed to, because I started writing a book like 10 years ago as well. And in the book I wrote about, as a man, I want to take a walk behind the wall and take the child by the hand, like take me by the hand as a child, say, "Mate, you're with me now, and we're all good. Come with me, buddy, let's go." And then that is what started to give me far more emotional control, because I'm like, I was being controlled by things that, like, parts of my brain or ways of thinking that were developed as a child. And if we don't, like, ever visit them, if we don't if we're never conscious about them, if we don't ever think we've got any reason to revisit them or heal these wounds. Most men would never say, "I've got emotional wounds." If we don't do anything about it, we can never grow. But the growth that I had by actually facing it, like facing that fear, facing that pain, I was able to come a long way.
Man, that was so well said. I love that analogy, bringing the boy out from behind the wall. I think yeah, mate, I love that. For me, it's exactly the same thing. Like, I want to be, I think as generations go on, we always want to be one level above what we grew up experiencing, right? And as you were sort of saying, like, everyone has shit. We all have shit. And if you think you don't, then you're more often than not just avoiding it. Like, we all have stuff going on, whether it's arguments, and you'll eventually find consistent patterns if you spend a bit of time and go, why does this keep happening? Or why are we still discussing this or arguing over this same crap? And if, for a lot of us, when we're trying to get better, or, we're trying to get wealthier, we always look to add. It's like, I need to add this course, I need to add this book, I need to add this person into my life, rather than going, well, I'm 30, right? And you're 37, or whatever age anyone who's listening is. It's like, you've got so much experience and lived experience within that you can look into to gain understandings around who you are, because everything that you add is just becomes overwhelming. It's like, it's always coming at you. Why don't you fuck all the external stuff off and start looking within and start trying to understand, why does this seem to trigger me? Why does that make me, not feel like I can voice my opinion? Why does this work this way? And
Yeah.
like throughout that process, like it can be very confronting. It makes you want to hide behind. I've been where I want to hide behind a fucking wall because I'm like, oh, did I really used to act like that or do that? But the moment that you can stand there and look at yourself in the mirror and go, look, I acted that way, but at that point in my life, that's what I felt I needed to do. And I'm now going to I'm going to punch the mirror, crack it, and we're going to move through it.
Yeah.
Probably not punch a mirror, but, you know, I'm going to be able to then learn from that experience. For me personally, I built my whole business pretty much based on me sharing stuff that I've gone through. And a lot of that comes from, you know, whether it's meditation or journaling or whatever, but me just reflecting on my own stuff.
Yeah.
Or, you know, having conversations like this, where as you were saying that, I'm sitting there thinking like, man, I'd love to drag little Lockie out behind the wall as well. Like I'm working on it, but I've still got stuff. I'm not perfect. I still got a heap of stuff to go through.
Yeah, same, yeah. Even just this year, like I've realized, particularly what you're saying, like always striving. So, and someone spoke about now, not there's anything wrong with always striving. Don't get me wrong, I love striving, but I like only striving. Never just going, okay, this is good enough. You're good enough. Like I was always looking for something else to bring in, and I'm not necessarily a material person, but to be honest, I'm a student as well. I work full time, and I'm also a student. I don't have enough money to be a material person anyway. But like, I always felt like I needed to change something about me in some way to feel fulfilled. And what I realized was, and I'd spoken about on one of my episodes recently because it was so really, really kind of fresh, is that through that fear I was talking to you about before. So through that fear and belief of rejection, what I would actually do, and this kind of blows my mind. I love that I figured this out. What I was actually doing was in every facet of my life for a long time, whether it was my business 10 years ago when I was running it, or whether it was my kickboxing back in the day, or even say recently in certain things, I was giving, say 90, 95%, 90, 95%. I was holding myself back in some way. So almost similar to what you were talking before, like self-sabotage. And why I've kind of come to this conclusion, why I was doing that, because I'm like, if that belief of rejection happens and I get rejected in some way, whether it's rejected because something doesn't work out, or someone actually like literally rejects me, like says, no, we don't want you to do that, or, you know, whatever it is, like you go for a promotion or whatever and you don't get it, or just something doesn't work out. I could go, yeah, but I wasn't giving my whole self. And so I had this cushion, you know what I mean? I had this thing to land on. That 5% cushioned the blow. So that's why I had developed, like maybe over the years, I was always holding myself back. But what I've realized, what that was doing was it left me with a hole, like, you know, it left me unfulfilled. So I was constantly chasing. So if, like, what was, just say if I started a business, or I, you know, went for a new job, or if I, you know, was on a diet plan or an exercise plan or whatever the fuck I was doing, starting a podcast, doing social media stuff, if I'm only giving 95% or 90% because I want a cushion, I'm always going to feel unfulfilled. So what I've been able to luckily kind of wrap my head around a little bit now, and I'm not necessarily 100% cured of it, or, you know, I haven't reached where I need to kind of get to, or wrap my head around it fully, but where at least I have an understanding, is that for me to feel fulfilled is not that I need to get more, I need to give more of me. I need more of me to come out. And then I'm like, hang on, I've been chasing all these things for so many years, and I've had this relentless, like, critic in my head, like a coach who tells me, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to get up, you got to do this, you got to do this. And it can be exhausting, as I'm sure you have something similar sometimes when things get a certain way. When I'm like, hang on, no, I'm always going to be unfulfilled if I only give that 90, 95%, if that makes sense.
100%, mate. I think so many people have that same cushion in their life.
Yeah.
I see it. So my perfect example of that, where I've seen that play out, and it sort of was the first time that I really became aware of that when I started. I did network marketing prior to the Man That Can project, and there was so many of us that started this, you know, network marketing at the same time, and I flew to like the top rank within 3 months, whereas some people never even get to the second rank. And I always looked like I failed. I pissed so many people off. I lost friends. You know, obviously I wouldn't say go do this, but I just gave 100% of what I thought at that point in time would allow me to achieve success.
Mhm.
And obviously through action, you get answers, right? You work out what works well for you and what doesn't, and what you need to change to sort of shape your, you know, you're shaping your character. Especially if you're coming from a place of where I was, where you don't understand who you are like I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I wanted for my life. I just had an opportunity where I was like, I can make money. Fuck yeah, I'm broke. I want money. But I did whatever I could. I ran events. I cold called. I caught, you know, public transport to meet people. I went to all of these things that I never would have normally done. But I always just had that. I don't want to leave anything in the anything left to
In the tank.
yeah, in the tank. I was like, what am I trying to say here? Because I've seen too many people do that. There's always these people who are still talking about what they did 10 years ago. And it's like, well, mate, if you'd been giving 100%, you wouldn't need to talk about what you did 10 years ago because that's irrelevant.
Yeah.
Like, and I wish, and I know you do as well, is like, I wish people could fuck that comfort blanket off
Yeah.
and just go, look, I'm whatever I decide to do, whether
Yeah.
it's be an incredible parent, whether it's be the best teacher, whether it's whatever the people choose to do, I'm going to give it 100%.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be perfect at it, but I'm going to be fulfilled because I know I'm giving my absolute all. I'm going to be able to learn from my baseline, because also people don't grow. People struggle to grow is because they're not giving their 100%. Their foundation of what they think is hard work is fake. So when they try to build upon it, there's something missing. There always is. And that's why it's like setback after setback. But if you go 100% build a solid foundation, it's like you can build some pretty solid layers upon that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I think maybe with me it was fear, but it was like an unconscious fear, as in like I wasn't necessarily always conscious that maybe there was a belief of rejection or a fear of rejection. I had no idea. It wasn't until I really started to, I guess, have a good look inside. But I think maybe what could be, it'd be interesting to get your perspective on this, but a couple of things that might be holding people back is either fear or the fact that they just don't believe in themselves enough.
That's a really good point, though. Yeah, I don't think I'm back in the day. I was actually thinking, man, I'm fearing rejection. I just had a feeling. I just just listened to it. I didn't actually, have all these labels for it. But it's definitely fear. Like I think every day, as we were saying, like the input of information and what we consume on social media, like we see people buying houses, running. Even for me, man, when I see people doing awesome stuff in the men's health space, I'm super inspired, but I also then think to myself, I'm not doing enough.
Yeah.
Like, and then I have the fear of like, am I good enough? And like, am I good at this? Am I giving it my 100%? And obviously, you know, I take this whole full circle conversation, but I still have moments where I see things, and once again, I always believe we're going to be struggling with comparison. Like we all have an idea of, or once you start taking ownership and deciding on what you want from your life, I think we all have an idea of what is possible for us and who we want to hang around, all of these sorts of things. But then, you know, you can look to the right of you and you can see your mate doing something else and succeeding and doing amazing. You know, I got a mate who's killing it with crypto, and I'm like, oh, I wish I'd spent that time doing that. But I'm like, well, that doesn't fulfill me. Like, I can get, you know, go, fuck, I wish I shoulda, woulda, coulda. But I also know I don't want to be looking at that kind of information for 8 hours a day. I love what I do. And I think so there's that tricky balance where, the fear of success, the fear of failure, the fear of or FOMO, the fear of not being good enough, all these things go through. But it's then when we do make that decision, fear is always going to be there. It's always, everything that we do that's new is uncomfortable. So fear pops up and goes. Well, for me, I'm like, well, am I experiencing fear or anxiety right now, or is this excitement because of what could lay ahead? And I always try to just go, Lockie, this is excitement, man. This is fucking, let's get amongst it and enjoy the process. But from the confidence standpoint, I wholeheartedly believe a lot of us, we haven't been taught, but confidence is a state, right? Like through repetition, you know, you continue to become more competent. Well, competent as well, but confident in things. It's like when you see, you give it someone an iPhone for the first time, they're not confident in how to fucking use it, especially one that doesn't have buttons. Like you give this
Yeah.
to someone who's 90, they would freak out, as
It's
we
true.
all did when the iPhone came out. And the more we use it, we're like, no, I can bloody text over my head and there's not even buttons. Like, but you
Yeah.
just know where it goes. So I think the more we utilize things, it's like we'll become more confident. But for me, it's like, well, how do I start my day to become or get myself in that right mindset of going, righto, I'm certain that whatever happens today, I'll be great at it, or I'll learn,
Yeah.
I'll figure it out. And that's why for me, like understanding, you know, I'm huge on meditation and visualization. I understand it's not for everyone, but that works really well for me because
Yeah.
if there's, you know, I get anxious even before this podcast, I get anxious before I have meetings with even clients that I've been working with for 4 years. I always get anxious because I'm like, what if something pops up that I haven't dealt with before or haven't heard
Yeah.
before? I freak
Yeah.
the fuck out.
Yeah.
But I go through my little routine, my visualization routine. I jump up and down. I, you know, go for whatever I need to do, and I get myself in that right mind frame. Whereas I think a lot of people in their life don't have something like that to go, well, what can I do to prime myself to get
Yeah.
myself fucking supercharged for whatever's coming? You know, even dealing with your kids. I don't have kids, but
Yeah.
man, I want to make sure that I'm not one of those dads who comes home fueled with rage from the day or whatever and
Yeah.
bring that energy into the house. I want to make sure that, you know, when I'm with family or with my missus, it's like I'm going to take some time outside first to just know that I'm coming in the door loving, ready to be a fucking good bloke, like in a good role model.
Yeah.
I think people, yeah, sorry.
I was going to say, I think you're similar to me. And it's, as I said to you on the phone like a few weeks back, I think you're the first person that I've spoke to that loves the getting up early, getting up in that 4 a.m. time.
Yeah.
And I think, so someone explained it to me, or get the word they put to it was that it's that anchor. So that anchor in the morning that, yeah, gets us ready for the day. Now, I've been a little bit inconsistent with it lately because I've been on holidays from uni, and I generally do it when I'm studying. It's been a little bit harder to do it. So I'm human. But when I do it, and I'm sure you'd agree, when you get up in that time where it says like 4 a.m. or 4:30 a.m., you feel fucking superhuman in comparison to not doing that.
It's a fucking win, right? Because it's hard to do.
Ah, yeah, it's but it just gets you so ready. And maybe because we do have that, I guess, maybe in some ways we have a relatively high level of anxiety for whatever reason, but we've developed controls over them. So it's not like you and I don't have anxiety anymore. We probably fuel our lives on anxiety because we've got we just have a far better control. Like you're literally never going to get rid of your anxiety, but you can control it. You know what I mean? It's like it's not going to leave your body. Our brain has been like designed a certain way, but we've just learned over time to use in a more high performing fashion. Like you don't want to get rid of your anxiety. It's a great energy.
I couldn't agree more. It can be tiring. Like I've got a lot of stuff coming up over the next couple of weeks, and I'm anxious as all hell over it. Like today, I'm like, maybe I should just cancel a few things. But I also know it's like, no, bro, like this is one, it's really exciting opportunities and stuff, but this is like a whole new ball game that you're about to play in. Like, don't cancel.
Yeah.
This is you wanting to play it safe and do what you've been doing for the last couple of years, which is where you're comfortable and you know you're good at. This whole new level is a different ball game, and that's the growth. That's, you know, all pain, to me, like being anxious about things is something's not going well in my life. Like I might be neglecting the routine, as you mentioned. I might be neglecting certain things in my life. I might be doing too much. So how do I look within to figure out what that is, to slow down and pinpoint what that is so I can manage it? Because I think it's, as you said, it's a fucking awesome feeling. Because when you overcome whatever it is that's giving you that feeling, you're like, you just become, it's like leveling up in Mario. Like,
Perfect.
Game on. Like it's brilliant. But Jamie, you're doing so much cool stuff. And for those who aren't following Jamie on socials, or definitely even subscribe to his potty, because you speak so well. And I said this to you when we spoke on the phone a few weeks ago, because we actually just connected through Instagram and then had an awesome conversation. And I was like, I feel like I'm speaking to myself. Like we just have so many commonalities. And I think you speak really well. And I love listening to. But so I'd highly recommend anyone listening to this, go check out Jamie's podcast, The Mind Tradie. And just quick little rundown. I've got two questions for you.
Yeah.
Why the Mind Tradie?
So, because I used to be a tradie, like previous to losing my vision, I ran a glazing business on the Mornington Peninsula down where I am, and I ran that for like 2 or 3 years. And now, after, like, when I lost my vision, I started to realize I was working on my own mind, and then I loved helping others work on their own. So I'm like, I love that name.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
What about what for you in your experience is the definition of a man? Like for you, how you're living your life and conducting yourself, what does
Yeah.
it mean to be a man?
Mean to be a man. I reckon it's probably changed over maybe the last few years or since I've had my daughter, but I think it's just having a good balance of being as strong as we can while being kind and to everybody, whether it's our family or strangers, like being strong in what we do, never giving up, absolutely never giving up. And being kind as well. That's what it meant. Like, it feels right to me to do that. But I guess that's like to be a man, I guess, like, but that could be for women as well. But I mean, that's what makes me feel strong as a man, is being kind to people, being like strong, putting myself in positions where I feel strong, like as you just talked about, getting up early, making ourselves ready and feel strong. And particularly not giving up, like never giving up, ever, never giving up, not even a chance of giving up. Like, things can fall apart and things can fail, but you don't give up. That's what makes me feel strong as a man. And I think it's maybe I can have a bit of an answer that's not concrete, and it's because probably, as in maybe it's a bit all over the place. It's because I didn't grow up with a strong father figure, so I'm just figuring this out by myself along the way.
I love it. I fucking love it. I've taken away so much from this chat, like overcoming adversity. Like, you've had a heap of stuff thrown at you, and it's just made there always comes this point in life where, like, it's the fork at the end of the road, and it's like you either go one way or the other. And you've obviously kept yourself on a good path, and you're an incredible role model. Obviously working with in wellness for kids at the moment and stuff like that, but studying psych and wanted to lead and inspire people through everything else that you're doing, mate. It's very, very inspiring, because it's definitely, from what you've even shared today, like so many opportunities where you could have just tapped out and been like, nah, I'm going to use this as a reason why I keep saying I bought a pregnancy pillow, bro, and I'm not me or my missus aren't pregnant, but it's so comfortable. And it's like I just picture people walking around with pregnancy pillows now, just being like, this is so comfortable. I don't want to take any risk or anything like that.
No, I appreciate you having me on. I've loved our chat. It's been fantastic.
Mate, it's been brilliant. And thanks again. And I'll, for everyone tuning in, I'll have all the Jamie's and the Mind Trading links if you just scroll down wherever you're listening, you'll be able to find his links.